Hi everyone. In our automotive chassis lab, today we have discussed about construction of steering linkage and its classification. Here is some content which are given below. Those content are discussed about this session. Steering system. Steering is the term applied to collect of component and linkage etc. which will allow a vehicle to flow the desired direction. That means the steering systems allow the driver to guide the car along the road and turn left or right as desired. The systems including some others are the steering wheel which the driver in control, steering gear which change the rotary motion of the wheel into straight line motion, and steering linkage which transmit the steering gear movement to the front wheel. System use whether it is passenger car or a commercial vehicle etc. At present, the rocker pinion types and recirculating ball type are used. Most steering systems were manual until a few years back. Then power steerings become popular. Need of steering system. If a good steering are having, there are some requirement of good steering are follows, like very accurate, easy to handle, provide the directional stability, multiple the turning effort apply on the steering wheel by the driver, irreversible to a certain degree so that the shocks of the road surface encountered by the wheel are not transmitted to the driver's hand. Function of steering system. Some functions or steering systems are like the primary function of steering system is to achieve angular motion of the front wheel to negotiate to turn. Second, to provide a directional stability of the wheel when going straight ahead. To facilitate straight ahead recovery after complete a turn. To minimize wear and tear of tires. To absorb a major part of road shock, thereby preventing them to get transmit to the hand of driver. And last one is to provide the perfect rolling motion of the road wheel at all times. So there is the functions or the steering systems. Now steering linkage. Steering linkage, which control the steering gearbox to the front wheel, consists of a number of rods. The rods are connected with socket arrangement similar to a ball joint called tie rod end, allowing the linkage to move back and front freely so that the steering effort will not interfere with the vehicle up and down motion as the wheel moves over a road. Steering gears are attached to a rear rod which moves when the steering wheel is turned. The rear rod is supported at one end. Type of steering linkage. Steering, basically there are three types of steering linkage are there. So depending upon the stability and simplicity, the several arrangement of steering linkage are used on various vehicles. So first one is linkage of rigid axle front suspension type. Second, linkage of vehicle employ the independent front suspension. And third one is the linkage for rear wheel drive vehicles. Conventional steering linkage, that means this is the conventional type, that is rigid axle front suspension steering system. That is the conventional steering system. So here is the picture of the conventional steering system. This one is the steering column or steering shaft or drive shaft. This is the steering gearbox. Pinions are inside here, or gears are inside here. This is the drop arm or pitman arm. This is cross shaft. This one is a drag link. This is the idler arm which is connect to the knuckle, and another idler arm which is connect to the track rod or tie rod. This is the track rod end. So both track rod or tie rod end are placed right side and right side or left side with the knuckle, steering knuckle. This is the track rod arm or steering knuckle. This is the kingpin, and this is star axle. So here is the basic construction of conventional type, that is rigid type steering system. Now there is the independent front suspension steering linkage. Independent front suspension steering linkage there are two types. Most of the time, here is the picture, there is the two type of independent front suspension steering linkage. So the steering linkage, independent front steering linkage are different type. One is parallelogram type or center link type. This one is the cross steer type. This one is the center steer type. This is the This is the central link type steering linkage. The typical parallelogram steering linkage, the central link also to be the name of the relay rod, drag link or connecting link. So the central link, which are one side is attached to the idle arm through the attached by the body frame of the vehicle, and another side which is attached to the pitman arm, and the pitman arm also attached to the steering gear, and two tie rods are connected to the central link with the ball joint, and tie rod adjusting sleeves are there. So inner tie rod are attached to the central link and outer tie rod are attached to the knuckle. This one is the Hiltenberg type, used with 4 twin I-beam. Hiltenberg steering linkage are basically the structure. One is the I-beam structure. So the pitman arm, this is the pitman arm, which one is attached by the drag link through ball joint, and drag link one end is attached to the steering arm, and tie rod are attached to the steering arm. Tie rod are attached to drag link, and tie rod adjuster sleeves are there, and the outer tie rod is attached to the steering arm. Cross steering linkage type steering system used with solid axle. Here we saw in the workshop, this Mahindra car are basically cross steering linkage type steering system. So here the steering gearbox, which are not seen here. So the pitman arm, which is one side of pitman, and this is the pitman arm, one sided pitman arm are connected to the steering gearbox, and another side is connected to the drag link with the ball joint. Drag link goes to the steering arm or steering knuckle, and this one is the tie rod. The outer tie rod is connected to the steering arm, and another side of the tie rod is connected to another steering arm. So this type of steering system is called cross steering link type steering system, and most of the independent solid axle type steering systems like Mahindra and others car are using cross steering link type steering system. And another type of steering system is rack and pinion steering link type. Most of the vehicles, like light and or heavy vehicles, are using rack and pinion steering systems. So here is the picture. This is the steering column, this is the universal joint, and this is the flexible coupling, and this one is the intermediate shaft. This one is the steering gearbox, and this one is called rack housing. So the steering gearbox and rack housing are joined together. So the rack house and steering gearbox are joined together. So the rack house and the rack are placed inside the rack house, and the pinion are inside in the steering gear. So if you see minutely, the rack housing. After rack housing, this is called tie rod, and this one is the one, another side. This is the tie rod, and another side also a tie rod. So the both tie rod are goes to the knuckle or tie rod end, and tie rod end are attached to the steering knuckle. So there are 4 ball joint are here. The outer tie rod are connected to the ball joint, and inner ball joint, which is not seen, which is inside the bellow, and which is connect to the tie rod to rack. So this is the we also see this is the conventional type steering system, which is also used in Tata 408. So there is the same process of linkage, but so if you see minutely the steering system, so this one is the steering wheel, this one is the steering wheel, and this is the steering shaft, and this one is the steering column, which is also the hollow type, and this is the combination switch, and this one is the another. This one is the white turn signal light lever, and this is the headlamp switch, and this another lever, which is this is also the wiper lever or wiper switch, and this one is the locking device. And if you see, the hollow shaft goes, and the steering shaft goes to the UJ and UJ, and this one is the intermediate shaft. If you see the lower part minutely, this is the intermediate shaft. This is also goes to the UJ or universal joint, and the other part of universal joint, which is also connected to the steering pinion shaft, and this is the steering gearbox. This is the another type of steering gearbox. Now if you see this one, after steering gearbox, this is the cross shaft, and the cross shaft which is connected to the drop arm, that is called pitman arm, and pitman arm also connected to the ball joint, and this one is the drag link. The end point of the drag link are connected to the ball joint, and it is connected to directly the knuckle. Okay, and this one is the this is the solid axle, that is the rigid axle, and if you see, this is the drop arm is directly connected to the right side of the knuckle, and another knuckles, the steering knuckles are connected to the tie rod, and this tie rod are good as a long shaft, and this is the ball joint. This is also connected to the knuckle and also connected to the tie rod. Okay, and if you see the tie rod goes to the another wheel, and it is connected to the knuckle. So this is the basic linkage of rigid type steering systems.
Here, depend upon the stability and simplicity, several arrangement of steering linkage are used on various vehicles. Here today we have discussed the independent type of steering system, which is called rocker pinion steering system. Now we have see the rocker pinion steering system linkage. Okay, so this one is called steering wheel, a so it is basically a circular member of about 250 to 300 dia and used to render simple control to the steering. In the modern age, the steering wheel are required to lightweight, so nowadays it is made by composite material like plastic or glass fiber combination, and another is zinc and aluminum based alloy, that is pressure die casting formation. Now this is the steering wheel. This is called steering column. This is steering shaft. This is the steering column. This is a hollow type steering column which is hollow, and steering shaft these are inside there and which is connect to the universal joint. So this is universal joint. The steering shaft are connect to the universal joint. This is the intermediate shaft, and this is the another UJ or universal joint, and this one is the steering gearbox, and this is the rack housing. This is called rack housing, and this one is called rack. So the rack housing, the rack are inside to the rack housing, and it and here the steering box, it is where the inside the steering box some pinion are there. Pinion are meshed to the steering rack gear. Then this is the ball joint, and this is tie rod. This is called tie rod. So, and tie rod, this one is tie rod end, and this is another ball joint which is attached to the knuckle by the lock nut. So here also some ball joint are there, tie rod are there, and tie rod end, and another is ball joint. So what is ball joint? This joint, the ball joint is connect the steering arm with track rod or tie rod. They are responsible for quick, earlier and smooth transmission of motion from the tie rod to steering arm. Acha, wait. So this is the construction of rocker pinion steering system. This one is also during the steering system. You have the steering gearbox. Look, this is the square nut. You have to see, which is called damping nut. Inside the steering gearbox, the pinion and rack are meshed strongly by the damping nut. When you open the damping nut, you will see some damping, some spring loaded damper are there. Now see, when the steering wheel are turned, what are the function? Now when the steering wheel are turned, what happen? The circular motion are transmit to the rack housing or rack pinion, and it is transmit to the linear motion. So what is the function? It is transmit circular motion to linear motion. Okay, and driver can drive the wheel in the track.